Hello, I'm Flesh Monk, and this is a video about Civil War, not the one with Abraham Lincoln, not the one with Robert Downey Jr., but the one that's in the comic books. Actually, I've been trying to record this video for a while now. I've gone through like several iterations, and I think what I've landed on is just to kind of give like a quick little summary, and then a quick little review, and then a quick little recommendation of whether or not I think you should read it. So let's start off with the summary. Alright, so first things first, you're in a world where superheroes are like a thing, and they've been a thing for like a while. So like Spider-Man's been Spider-Man for like 10 plus years. You got the Fantastic Four with a tall building in New York City. You got the Avengers being a thing. They're currently called the New Avengers. Right now, it's just like the world knows about superheroes. You know, it's very established. Now, there's this group called the New Warriors, right? And there's a reality show that they're in. They go after this group of bad guys that's really not on their level to speak, so that these bad guys are kind of more dangerous than the New Warriors. But they're also trying to get these ratings. So the New Warriors go after the bad guys. One of the bad guys, named Nitro, turns out he's like hopped up on something and he just explodes.
Oh, baby, don't you even know? You're playing with the big boys now.
Like a really big explosion, and ends up like killing like a bunch of children, and like blows up a school, and then blows up like some of the heroes. Like overall, it's just like a really bad look for superheroes. So S.H.I.E.L.D. goes to Cap and tries to recruit him to join their forces. Cap says no, and Tony gets spit on during some sort of press conference type thing. A woman just goes up to him and says, "My child died because of you," and spits on him. And then the sides split. Here is the time for the roster. The rosters pretty much stay the same throughout the whole thing, except for like some minor changes and one really big change. But at the beginning, you got the pro registration side, and that's like Iron Man, Reed Richards, Hank Pym, who's going by Yellow Jacket right now. You got Peter Parker. You got the rest of the Fantastic Four, and you have the government. I think those are like really the main players. The second team is Cap's team, called the Secret Avengers, and it consists of like Cap, Iron Fist, who's disguised as Daredevil, so he just shows up as Daredevil and everybody thinks he's Daredevil. It's a long story. Luke Cage, Falcon, Hercules, Cable, the Young Avengers, Cloak and Dagger, these people that you might not know what they do. And if you don't know what they do, you can ask in the comments below, because I'm not going to sum up everybody and their powers in one video. That would take a while. I tried that before. It takes a lot out of me. Like a lot. It takes too long. Like, you know how Cloak and Dagger's story goes? There's like a whole series about it. They felt like they needed to make a series about these two characters who aren't even like good enough to be put in like movies or like a primetime TV channel. Just put them on freeform. Like that's how much Cloak and Dagger matter. But I mean, like, Cloak matters in the sense that like he's really important later on in the story, but he's really like the only one of the minor ones that matters. Besides that, everyone kind of like functions in the story just as like vocal points. They're not really like using their powers or anything besides like Captain America and Iron Man, and then the smart people on Iron Man's team, and maybe Spider-Man. Like, not really anybody else is oh, except for Goliath. Goliath is very important, and he's on Cap's team because he's important because he dies. Now, you also might be asking where the people in the MCU are, because there are some people that I didn't really explain where they are, and you might be wondering where they are because they're important in the MCU. We got Hulk. He is in space. So what happened is there's this group called the Illuminati, and has like Iron Man, Professor X, Black Bolt, Namor, like all the important leaders / really smart superheroes. They kind of like form this little council called the Illuminati, and they just do like crazy things to keep the Earth safe, even though they're not like legal or ethical.
So maybe you're not completely ethical after all.
So pretty much like the Hulk was like kind of out of control, so they told Hulk to go on this like satellite and beat this monster, but it turns out that the monster on the satellite was meant to just be a trap, and so Hulk is on the satellite, and then the satellite turns to a spaceship, and then they blast the spaceship into space onto another planet, and then it turns to Planet Hulk, and that's literally another story. So another time we'll talk about that. Thor is dead. Scott Lang, Ant-Man he's not important. Hawkeye is also dead. Black Widow is not important. Scarlet Witch is dead, missing, not important. And then I think that might be it. Everyone else is kind of accounted for. Oh, Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch, he's not really like present in the story. They keep trying to reach him, and then he appears sometimes, but mostly he's just like in the Himalayas, meditating in the cold and fasting, trying to see how this will end and staying away from the conflict. It's really weird. He's just chilling in the mountains. At one point, like Ant-Man tries to like find him, and then he's just like, nah. He doesn't even answer him. Like Wong answers him like an answering machine. It's crazy. Yeah, after that, the big three, they kind of do like bad things. And by the big three, I mean Iron Man, Reed Richards, and Yellow Jacket, Hank Pym. So they're kind of like the resident eggheads of the pro registration side. So you kind of got them doing these like experiments and like scientific things to make the world a better place. So they do things like establish a prison that's in the negative zone, which is a place that you can't escape through easily. And they put superpowered criminals in there without trials just because, you know, or else they'll escape. They also all collaborate and create this mechanical clone of Thor with Thor's powers and stuff like that and trick people into thinking it's Thor. And then the robot eventually kills people, but we'll get to that later. Spider-Man is convinced by Tony Stark to reveal himself. And you might be asking, why would Spider-Man do that? Like, he's this high school kid from Queens and he's poor. Why would he reveal his identity? Like, doesn't he have people that he wants to protect and stuff? And you might be right, except in this timeline, at this present point, Spider-Man has been Spider-Man for like 15 years, man. So he's like 30 something. He's married to Mary Jane and his life is just in a really different place. So he's actually right now an Avenger. He lives in Avengers Tower with his aunt and MJ. And he's kind of like mentored by Tony Stark, which doesn't really happen in the comics until this point. And then he gives him the Iron Spider suit, which is this sick looking suit. It's awesome. And has 3 legs instead of 4. I don't know why it's 3 and not 4. I just guess he didn't want to be like Dr. Octopus, but it's like whatever. I totally like it more than the movie one, by the way. Tony basically is just like, hey man, want to do me a solid? Also because like I can protect your family. So Spider-Man's like, heck yeah, let's do it. Then there will be no consequences whatsoever. Except inevitably there are, because he's Spider-Man, he's unlucky, and writers hate him. And the editor was trying to get rid of his marriage, so this whole other thing starts. That's another story. So if you want to get into that story, like drop a comment, because that story is actually very, very funny and very impactful. It's not a good time for Peter. So then there's this sort of trap, and both sides like they fight. Before that though, like they're both just like fighting crime, except one's official and one's unofficial. They're not really like stirring up any like bad consequences. It's just like Iron Man will show up to like this battle of like the Sinister Six, and then it will have been revealed that like Cap and his team already showed up and solved the problem like an hour before them. So it kind of takes the wind out of Tony's sails. But there's this battle, and then they kind of get like Captain America's team in there, and they're just like, oh hey, there's this plant, it's about to like explode or something. And then Cable like looks under his foot and it says it's like a Stark factory. And he's like, oh no. And he like Admiral Akbars it, and it's like, it's a trap. But of course, like Iron Man's already there. And then they shoot like tranquilizer darts at their 2 teleporters. So they can't teleport anywhere. And they have to fight. So like helicopters circle around them, and there are like people with like tranquilizer rifles and stuff, and they're ready to fire. And then Iron Man's like, hey, yo, wait up though. We don't gotta fight. So he goes up to Captain America. He's like, hey, listen, I'm not trying to fight you. Like, this is all perfectly fine and dandy. Just come in, register, it'll be fine. It's literally the law, because the Superhero Registration Act was like signed and passed into like law. And Captain America's like, yeah, sure, man, I'm down for that. I'm down to talk. You know, let's talk about it. Let's negotiate. And they shake hands, and then everyone, all the superheroes, like, oh, thank God, because like I was not trying to fight people and like kill each other and stuff, because that's like totally not cool. But of course, Cap's like, psych. And then Tony looks at his hand, and there's like a mechanical device on it. He's like, what happened? Oh! And then he gets like shocked and taken out of the battle. And then everyone starts to fight. Everything goes to shit. And this is the point where it's pretty much just like, oh, these people are just acting out of character. Because there's no way, shape, or form would Cap just like trick Iron Man, his friend of like literally decades at this point. But they battle, and everyone's just like kicking each other's ass. And no one's really like winning, sort of, until they call in something called Project Lightning, or Project Thunder, and it is the biomechanical robot clone of Thor, and he drops down with lightning, and then everyone's like, whoa,
You're alive! You're alive!
because you know, in this timeline, this present point, Thor's supposed to be dead. So one dude's like, hey Thor, like, don't you recognize me? And he's like, I think not. And then he just he starts wailing on some people with lightning and his hammer and just like hits everybody, and they're not having a good time. So they're like trying to run. And then our dude Goliath, he's this scientist dude who is friends with Hank Pym at some point, and then he got like Pym particles, and he's like a giant man but black. And then he goes over to Thor, and he must have been like feeling himself or something, because he's definitely not like even if you're big, you're usually not like a match for Thor, but he's just like, hey Thor, like your return is about to be the shortest of all time. And he's like trash talking him, and then Thor's like, oh yeah, I think not. And then and then he blasts a big thing of lightning like through him and kills him. And at this point everyone's like, whoa, wait, what? Did someone actually die? And so whoever is healthy enough to run runs from Cap's side. They're just like running, and then evil robot Thor is like, I'm gonna kill you guys with lightning. And then they get shielded by Sue Richards. She's like, everybody leave. And it's like so cool because her like nose is bleeding. She's like putting a lot of force into it. Then yeah, they teleport out, and then you find out that he's like a robot clone. Reed is like, oh man, this wasn't supposed to happen. And then Sue's like, don't talk to me again, because they're having like marital problems, because Reed is basically like this dude who just never pays attention to his wife, and he's just all about like the science. Like if Sue is like, hey Reed, you want to smash? Reed would just be like, oh, I'm trying to smash these atoms together in my Hadron Collider. Yeah. I don't know why I went southern there, but it's just an example of what Reed would do. Like he's just I don't even know like how he just has sex. Like he probably like stretches his torso into like the other room and smashes while he's like examining biological samples under his microscope or something. At this point, the Secret Avengers are pretty much just like in their bunker healing. Like Captain America has like broken like legs or something like that. Like his hair was going through his mask, so he wasn't doing very well. And the official Avengers, the Avengers, they're like examining Robot Thor and trying to fix him. Peter's basically just like, hey, so what are we doing? Like I thought you guys knew what you were doing, and all of a sudden we're just killing people now. Like that's not a good look. And then there's this funeral, but they couldn't shrink down Goliath. So Goliath is this like 60-foot tall dude, and he has to be lowered down into his grave using construction vehicles. And he takes up 38 plots. Like I think the comic specifically says like 38 plots. So then they like put him into the ground. And then his widow like goes up to Tony. He's like, yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Don't tell me about anything, whatever. I knew that what he was doing was wrong, and that he was like an illegal, like outlaw, whatever. Here's this toy that my son plays with or my daughter plays with, because, just to remind you like what you're fighting for. And it's like this whole like guilt trippy thing, and it definitely doesn't really work, because the story still has like an issue or two to go. At this point, Spider-Man's just like, okay, so Tony, this isn't gonna work out because you're being a fascist. And then he attempts to leave, and at that point he like smashes into this bulletproof reinforced window, but he doesn't go through. Like he's like it just doesn't work. And then so he doesn't get away, right? Except like Tony's shield guards come in and they shoot the window until it breaks. And then Tony's like, oh god damn it. And then Spider-Man like jumps out and he escapes. And then Tony's like, no, I got this, don't worry guys. But then Shield's like, no, we got this. And it turns out that they recruited supervillains to help, because no superheroes like fascists. So these group of supervillains, like they go after Spider-Man, and then they throw like bombs at him, and they throw hallucinogenics at him, and he basically like hallucinates, and he just gets really fucked up. But eventually ends up like healing and going to the Secret Avengers thanks to the Punisher. And then this final battle happens in the negative zone, because the Secret Avengers find some way to get to the prison, and they release the people, and there's this big fight, and all of it doesn't really matter until someone's like, yeah, we're gonna shut down the prison and keep you guys all locked in the negative zone, like literally everybody. And then Cap's like, well, we can't have that happen. And then Cloak comes through, and Cloak's ability is to teleport, right? So he's like, I've never teleported so many of these people before. And then he gets like a rousing speech or whatever, like 3 panels, or like 3 bubbles in a panel, more like. And then he like stretches his darkness over everybody, and then they get teleported in the middle of New York City. And then they keep fighting, and they're just like fighting, and they're fighting, and then Captain America is getting the upper hand on Iron Man. How? I don't know. I don't know like at all, because Captain America is pretty much just like not as strong. Oh, I think he gets help from like Hercules or something. I think something like that happens. So he gets help, and they're beating on Iron Man, and he's about to basically like knock Tony out and do whatever. And then like a bunch of civilians come and drag him away, And they're just like, hey, you, stop doing what you're doing. Yeah. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm Captain America. I'm helping everybody. And they're just like, what? But look around you. And then you see like a bunch of these buildings and they're on fire. And like people obviously like probably like injured and stuff like that. And Cap's like, oh no. And he kind of realizes like, we've been fighting this whole time. And we've been hurting civilians. Even though they haven't been hurting civilians before. And then he surrenders. He like cries and he surrenders. He lets like the cops like turn him in. And that's it. That's it. That's the end. That's like pretty much the end. Besides this whole little like epilogue sequence we got. Cause like there really are like no consequences for like the quote unquote bad guys of the story, which is the pro-demonstration side, if you didn't notice, with the fascism. So these are the consequences.
Consequences.
Just to roll through them kind of quick, and I realize I said this would be a quick summary, but it's like 19 minutes long, but you bear with me. Captain America dies. He gets assassinated secretly by his girlfriend or something like that. It's kind of unclear. I haven't read it in a while. We could do that too later. Just put down a comment, be like, I want to do Cap dies next. Yeah. Spider-Man makes a deal with the devil to get rid of his marriage, and he does that to save his aunt and to retain his secret identity, because his secret identity being out means that his aunt is shot by a bullet. And then he like wears a black suit and he beats up on Kingpin. It's like a whole thing. Goliath is still dead because he's not important enough to be revived, apparently. Iron Man, head of S.H.I.E.L.D. now, because you can only fail upwards when you're a billionaire. There's peace in the United States. There's a 50-state initiative thing, which means that every state gets their own superheroes, so everyone's kind of like equally established, which is like a good thing. I mean, I think people are pretty much tired of everyone just being in New York all the time. Like, I feel like they have crimes in like Idaho. There's like one supervillain in Idaho, and he's just like really fucking everything up, but like no one ever goes there. Like, I bet this guy would have to murder like 800 people before Iron Man even considers like going over there or something like that. It's kind of ridiculous how everybody lives in New York, so I'm a fan of this plan. Interdimensional prison, that's a yay, because I guess people in the universe don't feel safe because supervillains are always breaking out of prison, which is a fair point. I feel like if prisoners were always escaping from our prisons and then killing people and like throwing people off bridges and robbing banks and like vaporizing people and trying to turn people into mutants, but then they turn into watery blobs, like I feel like, you know, I would be down for interdimensional prisons. They did it on Krypton, so I mean, it's not unheard of. And you got this version of S.H.I.E.L.D. that's like extremely powerful. So like even though they were powerful already, like now they got like superhero registers. So they have like basically all the information on all the superheroes, and they got like this 50-state initiative that they're in charge of, and Iron Man's in charge of it, so he makes everything like super efficient. So you got this really powerful S.H.I.E.L.D. at the end of Civil War. It's kind of scary. Now for the review segment. Overall, cool ideas but poor execution. I think it could have been handled better. The concept is so cool, but in execution, like the characters don't act like themselves, and you got these people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Like Tony Stark is like a dickhead, right? Just as much as anybody else. This is also before he started acting a lot like Robert Downey Jr., but like I don't think he'd be down for making a clone of Thor that kills somebody, and I don't think he'd be down for making interdimensional prisons. Hank Pym is kind of more fluid because he's not as popular. And then Reed Richards is like this weird mad scientist dude, so I mean, I think I could give him a pass for making an interdimensional prison, but I think that's just because like everything I read about Reed makes him seem like a psychopath, so he's never been very redeemable. But even things like Cap betraying somebody, like this isn't any somebody, by the way, this is Iron Man. Like I don't think Cap would necessarily do that, because I think that's just very dishonorable. That's not really what he would do, in my opinion. That's really like all you need. It's a solid concept, but the execution's just not there, you know? Even like the art like is kind of like sloppy towards the end because it's really rushed. Apparently they were very behind schedule. And overall, it's just not very exciting. I think the event is more exciting if you read all the tie-ins and stuff, because everybody had their own series at a time. They had their own Civil War comics. So that might have been more depth where you want it, but so far for this 7-issue miniseries, not that good. It leads though to like this kind of massive dope arc in Marvel over the next 5 years, where they kind of like take this concept and they just keep extending it towards its natural through lines until they end up in something called the heroic age, like 5 years later. But it's like really cool because you got like Civil War, which splits everybody up. Then you got Secret Invasion, which reveals that like people are Skrulls and they're invading. Then you got Dark Reign, where Norman Osborn is like, hey, I'm head of S.H.I.E.L.D. now, like legitimately. And then he makes his own Dark Avengers team. And then you got Siege, where he tries to attack Asgard. And then the heroic age, which is when everybody is just like back to where they should be, more or less. And besides that, like if you're not trying to read like the heroic age, not trying to start that, like I don't know, I feel like there are plenty of better comics that you could read that aren't Civil War. I think Civil War is like a really cool idea, and you should read the summary or just like listen to a video which gives you the summary about this, which is literally this video. So if you're listening to this video like and you're not trying to read the other books, like I don't think it's really worth your time to read this book. Overall, I'd probably give it like a 2 out of 5, like a 3 out of 5. It's like okay, it's pretty cool, big ideas. I think the movie did it better. Yeah, that's it. It's 2 out of 5. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you could. Comment if you could. Like if you could. If you want to dislike, I mean, you're free to. It's a free country. I would rather you not, but you know, just smash that like button. Smash that bell if you want to see when I post. I don't think I'm going to post very often, but you're free to smash that bell and smash that comment button and smash the keys on your keyboard and type good things. Let me know what else you want me to kind of like sum up or talk about and give my opinions on, I guess. Even though this was more of like a summary than an opinion, but I mean, it's kind of like a free-flowing thing. So I mean, it really, I don't even know why you're still listening. The video is pretty much over, so if you could just like close it or leave it on or whatever, I mean, it's really up to you. So it's just gonna keep going. If you could just, you can leave, you can go, like bye. Thank you for viewing. Are you still here? Is this a thing? Do I just start another video? Okay, I'll just start my Darksiders 3 review. Let me find the document. Let me find the doc.